popcorn, grab a Coke, and find that old VHS. We're diving deep in cheesy flicks. Yeah, we're on a vintage quest. Low reviews but high on laughs. Let's give these films a cheer. The cult classics, flops, and duds, they're our topics this year. We're the Ejectables, rolling back the years, celebrating movies that no one else cheers. From backhand twos to epic fails, we say it's all good. We're the Ejectables, yeah, we're misunderstood.
Welcome to The Ejectables, a show where movie enthusiasts Bill, Ian, and Joe join forces with a rotating weekly guest to defend films that the critics and our audience have panned or left behind. Each episode, our panel dives into a movie they believe has been unfairly panned or just unjustly considered a flop. Tonight's guest is Nick Clement. Nick, great to see you.
How you guys doing?
Good. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. So Nick actually is a writer for Variety, and he's a feature film producer with credits including Out of Exile, as well as Alien Intervention, both of which can be found on Amazon Prime. And the link to both of those films are in the description below. So check out Nick's amazing work, okay?
Thanks, guys.
Nick, so you're going to be defending tonight Domino. Ian's going to be defending Snow Falling on Cedars. I'm going to be defending Secret Admirer, and Bill's going to be defending The Super. So we're going to start with you, Nick. Domino, tell us why this has been unjustly panned, etc.
Well, for me, and it's funny that you put the image up. That way we knew it was Tony Scott's Domino and not Brian De Palma's Domino, which is a completely different film. But yeah, no, I am basically the world's biggest Tony Scott fan. I'll say that right out the gate. He was like my idol when I was a kid. Truly, one of the main reasons why I got into the whole entertainment world was Tony Scott's work. I was like, for whatever reason, enamored with his movies as an 8, 9, 10-year-old, 11-year-old kid. When I was in high school, it was like Jerry Bruckheimer, Tony Scott's all I cared about. So they were sort of the reasons why I got excited about movies. They were the people that gave me my first jobs out in Hollywood. So for me, just on a personal level, Tony Scott's my favorite director. And for me, Domino sort of represents everything that you could ever possibly want in a Tony Scott. I think Manohla Dargis said, it's the most Tony Scott movie ever made. Right. So, clearly not a minimalist filmmaker by any stretch, a maximalist if there ever was one. Even more so in my mind than his brother, who I'm big fan of, Ridley Scott, of course. But there's just something about Tony Scott's movies, all of them. I mean, you could go into each one, and they're all so much fun. But for me, Domino was just it was right after he did Man on Fire, and he had really pushed some serious filmmaking boundaries there with the editing and the pacing and the technique. And obviously someone like Tony Scott, right, throughout his career, you're charting that technique and seeing that progression, the class of those British directors in the 80s coming over and sort of taking over Hollywood with that slick and shiny aesthetic that Bruckheimer and Simpson, of course, really responded to. And then to watch sort of Tony go off on his own and get really experimental there. I mean, making very expensive experimental films. I mean, and you look at the movies post Domino, like Deja Vu, and Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3, his version on it. Those are some of the most, you go back and look at them. Those are some of the most expensive, visually extravagant, and in many respects, experimental studio movies that there really were, especially at that time period. And I'm not talking about necessarily on a storytelling level, and I do think that there's a big knock on Scott's work. At least there was back in the day. It was never cool to like Tony Scott. He dies, of course, and then it becomes cool. And now you can go and you can read all these tributes and how great he was and all that jazz. But, forever it was, he's a demon. He was, style over substance, nothing there. Never bought into that notion. If you go back and look at all of his movies, there's a beating heart at the center. And that's the thing for me about Domino is that, there's a love for the characters first and foremost, right? And that movie, when it came together, of course, based on a real character, the time that he took to just get that film right in terms of what they were trying to do. Of course, the movie is insane. You're not really getting that story right because it's crazy and it's very much embellished, but the essence of who she was captured in that film. And I can, not that I was hanging out with them, but like when I was working for Tony Scott, he was, editing. He had just come back from the UK where they had shot a lot of Spy Game, and he was editing Spy Game, writing Man on Fire, and prepping Domino. So it was wild. So you had like all these crazy people coming into the office and seeing it all come together. And one of the things that he was always adamant about, let's get it right. And let's really get Domino's side of the story. And you got that sense when you hear him talk or get into his things, why his movies felt the way they did a lot of the times. There really is a love for the characters. So outside of the love I think that he brought to the characters in that movie, it's just crazy. Like, and if you're not into MTV and post MTV editing and all that kind of stuff, I get it. I know that it's an aggressive film, but man, there's stuff. I got it playing right now on my TV while we're talking, and I'm just watching the opening credits. The opening credits to Domino are better than some entire freaking movies. I mean, it's crazy. Like the 2 minutes that he does here, and if ever a movie deserved 3 directorial credits, right? It was Domino. This movie is all Tony Scott. It was unfiltered Tony Scott, right from the cerebral cortex, as they like to say in Strange Days. It was right all there for the viewer to sort of take or leave. And clearly they left it. It was a huge bomb. Nobody liked it. It was super, super expensive, right? $50 million or something like that, $40 million, independently financed, might I add, right? And New Line comes in after the fact. This is a movie that he wanted to make. And that's what I love about it so much, is that there was not a studio assignment. This wasn't taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 redo, right? This was the movie Tony Scott wanted to make. And I just think it's wild. I think it's funny. I think it's crazy. The mixed race flowchart scene for me is like an all-timer. Like I still just think that's a hilarious concept. And I see things now, again, back in the day, 2005, everybody, Tony Scott, he sucks, right? The kids these days have the joke, and I don't know if they're in on it, but a couple days ago, I saw a mixed race flowchart joke from Domino from like 19-year-olds, right? So like he did something right. At least somebody's found it, and it's nice to see. And it's just, how long do I have, by the way? Because I could probably talk for about 7 years about Tony Scott and Domino and stuff. Just cut me off or play me off like they do at the Oscars or something like that. Like, let me know.
How much of the script, how much of the movie does the credit go to Richard Kelly, do you think?
Well, I've actually, I read numerous drafts. A lot of the script was rewritten by Richard Kelly. Steve Barancic, I believe, I think he was the first writer. I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to remember everything. There's so many freaking movies that float around my head, but I know Steve Barancic was one of the writers. Great writer. Last Seduction, terrific writer. But it was pretty much a Richard Kelly thing by the end of it. Tony was really obsessed with Richard Kelly. Loved him. Loved his work. Thought he was a badass and thought he was cool. And I think he's cool. I've been a fan of Richard Kelly's work. I could do another one of these shows and talk about Southland Tales. I'm the guy that enjoyed that movie.
That'd be interesting.
Which again is a crazy film, and I get it. Like, some people don't like it. I'm just there's certain movies that hit me, right? And I think that Southland Tales is a crazy film. I think it's gotten way better as the time has progressed too. I mean, it's crazy. Watch that movie now, and we're like halfway there.
You got to come back and do that on this show. You got to do it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. But yeah, no. It was pretty much a Richard script. I don't remember, honestly. I don't remember there being 50 writers on that movie. I think it was just the two of them. I don't remember all sorts of, and I wasn't there for all of it too. I was there for a little bit when he was developing it. I was gone after 6 months, and didn't get a chance to see it getting filmed or anything like that. But
coming after Man on Fire, which is a masterpiece, Chris Rock says is one of the best movies ever made, and I agree. Good. That is a masterpiece, dude. That I just expected something a little more. Not so crazy.
Well, look, I mean, it's not the same movie. I mean, like Domino. Look at Domino is a movie that's framed. I mean, the movie is framed around a character who is still high as fuck on mescaline. Nothing is supposed to make sense. It's supposed to be crazy. Like, you're not really supposed to take everything at face value. It is one of the most stylish movies ever, just on a pure style level. I mean, there is no shot in Domino that was not finessed to a fare thee well by Tony Scott in terms of how he wanted it to look, if you know what I mean.
Who shot it? Who was the DP again?
Dan Mindel, who had shot Spy Game and Enemy of the State for Tony Scott. He shot Domino. Paul Cameron shot Man on Fire. So Domino, so Mindel came in and sort of pushed what Tony had been doing there to like the nth degree. And then he would go off. And then who shot? Then Paul came back for Deja Vu. And then he goes to Tobias Schleicher for a couple movies. Unstoppable. I mean, look, if you want to talk about if you ever do a podcast, the best last movies by filmmakers, unfortunately, because of what occurred with Tony Scott, we got, we don't have many years, another 15 years, 20 years of films. Unstoppable was a high note to go off of. I mean, that was one of the more fun studio programmers that would never get made these days, certainly. The
awesome movie.
Denzel Washington, Chris Pine movie. I mean, that's as good as a studio action movie could possibly get. It's thrilling. It's exciting. I just watched that movie with my son not too long ago because it's like, like even an 8-year-old can watch that movie and it's cool. And like, you're not like, not going too overboard with the, all the craziness. But for me, the experimentation, the desire to push yourself as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, a guy who had been working in the confines of massively budgeted studio films, right? Who then took the massively budgeted studio film mentality to an independent film. And because he's Tony Scott, he got a lot of, I'm making movies that cost not $50 million, at least not right now. So I even look at that even with more respect, that it was like, all right, I'm making this fucking movie. I want it to be a certain way. It's going to be a certain way. I'll get the money. And honestly, it's like a lot of movies. It's like a film like his brother's film, The Counselor. I don't think that people were ready for Domino. I don't think that people got it. I don't think that they understood it. It's certainly gained fans over the years. I mean, now, again, I've seen things on Facebook. I see things about Domino all the time. Maybe it's just because it's the people that I'm friends with, but I've got a pretty wide movie, friends list and a lot of different tastes, and it's cool to see. And again, I just think that when you're talking about a filmmaker who was not necessarily like always trying to reinvent themselves with everything that they did, but a guy who really, and I've studied his work. One of my long passions is to write a book. I wrote the liner notes for the Arrow Films release of True Romance.
Oh, cool.
Which of course, mid-career masterpiece for Tony. Amazing, True Romance. God, could talk 10 years about that movie. But I had been wanting to write a book about Tony Scott's work. And I had started to write a book. I'd done tons of interviews. I still have all the stuff. I still might do it one day. But when I got hired to write the liner notes for the True Romance release, my book at the time sort of became those liner notes. So for any Tony Scott fans who need to need to read me talk about that man's work, you pick up that thing, and there's a lot of stuff in there. I really dive into his whole career. And
what's it called?
It's the Arrow Films. They're a brand like Criterion, whatever. Arrow Films. The True Romance Special Edition has liner notes, has a booklet or something. Okay. I'm assuming it's still available. Maybe it's sold out. I don't know.
That's so cool.
Tends to happen with. Cool. Yeah, I love writing liner notes. It's a lot of fun. But
I just want to say I've never been embarrassed to say I have loved films by Tony Scott. I was looking forward to seeing this film. So True Romance, like you said, is one of the greatest films. And it's one that has grown on me even more as the years have passed. It's one of the best. So I was very much looking forward to seeing this film. And I think it's so cool that you have this experience with the Scotts. So I don't mean to say anything bad about it and rest in peace. But man, I remember this being, when I saw it at the theater, because I was excited to see it, being the most repellent film I'd ever seen. And so we have other films that we're covering today. So it was the last one that I forced myself to watch. I finally finished it today, but I did not hate it as much. And my wife walked in with her friend, maybe 20 minutes in. They're like, "Oh, what is this?" They got sucked in.
Really? But it's the most masculine movie ever made.
Well, we came back and finished it this morning because her friend passed out. But I got to say, it's pretty darn repellent. I found myself going to Google and finding her true story far more interesting.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy? The true story is even a better story.
So much more interesting. But Ebert liked this movie. Ebert said it was fractured and maddening.
Yeah, Roger Ebert and Manohla Dargis are two of the biggest supporters. It was wonderful.
Wow, stars.
It was wonderful to at least have the two of them.
Yeah,
wow, dude.
It had good aspects if they focused maybe a little bit more. And I know it's supposed to be like maybe a drugged out state of mind, but for the audience, I was like, oh my God. Yeah. Like I almost had a seizure several times.
I was going to say it's terrible for people with epilepsy.
Yeah. It needs a warning for epilepsy.
It really does. Yeah.
If you had, it's a continuation and an extension, honestly, of what got started with Natural Born Killers. I think in a lot of ways, and we could go back and and honestly, I wrote an article about how Domino, the movie Shoot 'Em Up.
That's not a bad movie.
No, Shoot 'Em Up. Running Scared, and the movie Smokin' Aces.
Great movie.
All of those movies, and there's more, but those were for me sort of like this like sub genre of like cubist action movies where everything was told in little pieces, all sort of guided by the hand of Oliver Stone with movies like Natural Born Killers and U-Turn, where things started to get really even more wild with some stuff. It's almost like The Bridge, and you have like Ameros Peros hanging out because that's where Tony Scott was influenced on Man of Fire by Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu's work. That's where he got like that visual look and stuff, like a lot of that kind of business. He was really, really in love with that stuff. But I think if you go back, you can even make the case, started with Oliver Stone, sort of Domino and Natural Born Killers are almost kissing cousins in a way.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Ian, Nick. I think that's awesome that you love this flick and you're giving us inspiration to give it a rewatch, because it sounds like it's something that we should work on appreciating. Because
no, totally. But your repellent comment, you're not alone. I mean, Todd McCarthy in Variety hated it. I remember his review. I've read it multiple times. I read it sometimes just because it's so beautifully written. But he in fact brought up about how the movie looked sickly and how there was like this puke green color going on everywhere. And I was like, dude, like that puke green color is in every movie, but whatever. But yeah, I remember he was also very bothered by it. I also think there's something about too that when there's movies that bother people to like such an interesting degree, it's always so interesting to hear why. And I think
like The Counselor or Killing Them Softly.
Yeah. Oh, those. Yeah. I mean, those are again two two movies that I will go to bat for any day of the week. I think they're great.
I just like a through line, something that pulls me through a movie, engages me, and doesn't like just punch me and be like, "Oh no, look over here." But the story, you know.
Oh yeah.
Domino is a good story there. You can see it.
It's the ultimate ADD movie. Not gonna lie.
Oh, I mean, it certainly is.
It is one of the ultimate ADD movies, and I probably have had it forever and just never got diagnosed.
I think I had it too.
I think that's great. I think that's great. Ian, so you did a movie called Sleep Falling on Eyelids, right?
No, it is entirely the opposite film from Domino. It's Snow Falling on Cedars.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got that.
What a jerk!
It reminded me of a Marvel movie, Ian.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it reminded me of a Marvel movie, action-packed.
I'm sorry, I was with you. No, but it doesn't. I think there's a lot going on here.
I've read the book. The book makes sense. The book makes sense. The movie does not make sense.
I never read the book, and I think it's one of the most beautiful films ever. And I was like, was that just my early 2000s self? But then I revisited it, and I think it's still beautiful. The way all the overlapping flashbacks and the way that it flows, and you get a perspective. I don't know. Okay, I'll tell the story. The story is about this Japanese American man that is accused of murdering his neighbor, who's this white guy, and it's in 1950s, I believe, Oregon. And
Washington.
Washington, same thing. I mean,
it's by Puget Sound.
Sorry, I'm on the East Coast. What do I know? I'm sorry. It's just a movie. Okay. So, and then Ethan Hawke plays Ishmael, who's this reporter in this small town.
Because there's so many people named Ishmael in Washington State in the 1950s. Okay,
also in Oregon. So I'll go with So Washington, and so it's a courtroom drama, but they don't spend too much time like bogging you down in boring courtroom drama stuff.
No, that's the plot.
But what do you mean?
It's bogging you down and boring you. That's the plot.
It's beautiful. I mean, I think it's for people who don't like Domino.
Nick is watching Domino right now.
No,
I don't even want to talk about Snow Falling on Cedars.
I look at dude. Snow Falling on Cedars is one of the most absolutely gorgeous. It is punishingly beautiful.
Nick is right.
Robert Richardson's work on that movie is, I believe it was Oscar nominated.
Oh, was it?
I think it was, if I'm not mistaken.
It's stunning. His work is stunning.
He had done the horse. I was just looking it up actually. That's what you caught me. He did the horse. I mean, the guy's credits are mind-boggling. But he did the Horse Whisperer, Snow Falling on Cedars, and then Bringing Out the Dead. 1, 2, 3.
Wow,
that's insane. Okay,
amazing.
That's completely nuts. A mere mortal, that's not the work of a mere mortal. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy.
I think the editing, the music by James Newton Howard is amazing. I think the performances are great. That monologue by Max von Sydow at the end, I think it's very timely and fits these times we're in now about decency and making the right choice.
I wish it was longer.
It's so good.
It's one of the most beautiful films ever shot.
Yeah,
okay, at least that's something. But for those people who like a movie, I wouldn't say even takes this time. I think this movie is ahead of its time. How it deals with the history of the Japanese Americans during World War II. I think people were not ready for this film, and I think
I agree. It does feel very prescient,
right?
In terms of Asian hate, and it was like, oh, this could be 2024,
and it's a storyline we don't see much in cinema, in American cinema. So it's I think it's very worthwhile.
And protagonist named Ishmael,
right?
3.5 stars from Roger Ebert.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. That's one more half star than Domino.
It's funny too. I was watching some vintage Siskel and Ebert stuff earlier today. It was so much fun.
I missed those.
Never heard of them. So Joe, what movie did you pick?
I did Secret Admirer with C. Thomas Howell, Lori Loughlin, and Kelly Preston. So in this film, an anonymous love letter is left in Michael Ryan's locker, that's C. Thomas Howell, on the last day of school and wreaks havoc on his life and the lives of everyone who come in contact with it. I love this film for a lot of reasons, mostly Lori Loughlin's character. I mean, she's so altruistic. Like in high school especially, you know, you're just much more like sensitive and immature, and yet she is in love with her best friend, and yet she's so altruistic and so loving that she's actually doing everything that she can do to facilitate this relationship with this girl that he loves. She really puts herself in harm's way, trying to protect him. And, you know, she's just exhausted by the end of it because she's having to like leave for school, and he's put her through the ringer, not intentionally. He's just, he puts everything together with the different love letters, and it's a lot of comedy of errors, which are really well done. And, I think she really makes it because she's just so altruistic. And I also liked how with the parents that, you know, there was something involving like affairs and whatnot. And I think the line was, hold on one second. It was, I think it was something like, we have the perfect marriage and we're screwing it up, or something along those lines, right? We shouldn't be here. Here's the line. We shouldn't be here. We're happily married. And that I thought was also really interesting because, like, why do, if people are happily married, cheat? And that happens an awful lot. So I thought that was interesting too. What were you saying, Ian?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I was feeling bad for Dee Wallace because this is like, 2.5 years after E.T. And here she is, this kind of bit character in this kind of middle of the road, 80s comedy. But I have to say, I had never seen this film.
Who, Ian?
Dee Wallace.
Dee Wallace Jones.
C. Thomas's wife. C. Thomas's mother.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought she was great. Okay.
She was in E.T. and
kind of a small role after E.T., which was only a couple of years earlier.
When was Cujo also?
Cujo was probably a year or some, maybe around like 84 or something.
There's an amazing podcast with Dee Wallace on that Gilbert Gottfried did. Everyone should check it out. Besides, that podcast was the best, but she's very insightful, very thoughtful. I can't recommend that episode enough.
And she's still working, so good for her. I'm going to say I was shocked. I enjoyed this film. It's like perfectly encapsulates the mid 80s. So well done.
It sure does, right?
Shocked I enjoyed it.
It holds up better over time. It reminds me of like a Shakespearean type of movie. I think it didn't do well because everyone thought it'd be like a body, like nudity comedy, and it's very heartfelt. C. Thomas Howell was great. Lori Loughlin was awesome before she went to prison.
And Casey Siemaszko, is that how you say his name?
Yeah, I'm going to do 3 O'clock High.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I was thinking about doing that, actually.
That's one of my favorite flicks.
I'm so glad you're going to do that. That's going to be great. I saw that in the theater last time I saw it.
Spielberg took his name off it because he hated it so much.
I don't blame him. But Nick, what did you think? Did you get to see Secret Admirer, Nick?
I've seen it. Not that I didn't get a chance to revisit it, but I have seen it, and I actually watched it for the first time right after Kelly Preston passed away.
Oh, yeah.
I went and I watched a whole bunch of her movies, and that was one that I watched. I had never seen it, and I remember enjoying it. I thought it was fun.
She was great in it.
She was so great. Yeah. They were all excellent. Yeah.
Co-written by the guy that did Stakeout, if you could believe it.
I was just about to say, yeah.
Great. In California.
Oh.
Jim Koff, yeah.
Which we will.
Hey, Bill, how do you pronounce his name? I've always wanted to know. Is it Koff?
Oh, I'm guessing. I say it's Koff. Yeah.
Koff?
Yeah. I could be wrong.
I've always was wondering how you pronounce that guy's name.
I didn't like Disorganized Crime, which he wrote and directed. That's a good movie also. That was an early Touchstone movie. Maybe I'll put that on the next one. But
I don't remember that one.
I was reading that someone else had the Kelly Preston role and actually shot for a few days before.
Really? Who was it?
Julianne Phillips. And I guess she shot for a few days, but they
Bruce Springsteen's ex-wife, the model.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
But she shot for 4 days, and they thought she looked too. What they say? She looked too smart or something.
Yeah, that I think was a big. That was another thing I really loved about it is that he can't, like, she's beautiful, obviously, but she's not, the brightest bulb in the box, right? And I think that he even says, he's like, he's trying to like connect with her, and she's super shallow, and
Mhm.
she throws. I loved in the diner. It was very realistic when like she gets something on her blouse or whatever, and she throws this like shit fit, and she's like really really upset, and he's actually pretty cool about it. But yeah, I thought that you needed somebody who really came across, and it's not easy to play dumb. Like you have to be a really smart actor, from what I gathered, to play a dumb person, dumb character. Would you not say, Ian? Because I know you act.
I guess I look smarter than I actually am, so I get the smarter people. But I like Oregon and Washington. Are they separate places?
Yeah, no, they're combined. I miss those old Orion movies from the 80s that were like $10 million, you know. And I love the locations of Secret Admirer, like Glendale and Burbank, when they were these middle-class enclaves that are no longer the same.
Yeah, Nick Kershaw song in there, so that was cool.
Yeah, I highly recommend it as well.
Such a good flick.
Yeah.
Bill, what did you do? You did the Super, I hear, right?
I did the Super with Joe Pesci.
That key art's Oscar worthy.
I know, right? You're Oscar worthy, Nick.
Oh,
I love this movie. I could watch it once a week. Sam Simon wrote it. Sam Simon is a famous writer. He was on staff of Taxi at 23. He co-created The Simpsons, and he wrote this movie. Total bomb, by the way. It's based on a true story of a slumlord in New York that judge sentenced him to live in the apartments that he held. So it was inspired by a true story. Rod Daniel, one of the best stylistic comedy directors ever. He did like Father Like Son. He had such an amazing vision and awesome work. And the movie is more timely than ever about poor people and how people have a right to live, and about rich versus poor. It gets better over time. Total disaster when he came out. He was a nightmare on set, Joe Pesci.
Oh.
But
really?
Yes.
Oh, that's sad to hear.
Yes, but
He was a jerk. He was acting like diva.
No, he just made the producer's life hell. But Sam Simon's script has such great one-liners, so well shot. You know, the race stuff is awesome. I kind of miss that sometimes about how stupid racist people are, but I love this movie. To me, this is a 4-star movie.
I saw this at the theater, and
Wow.
I remember I went to the theater and saw it, but I had no recollection of it. And now, having rewatched it, understand why. It is, all due respect, Bill, it is painfully unfunny. My son. This is my son. I show my son the trailer.
Oh, your son's not gonna get this. He doesn't know.
Liked it. He liked it. He's like, from all the trailers I showed him of the movies we're watching this week, he's like, oh, I want to watch that one with you. So he watched Secret Admirer as well. But he said when
you watched that with your son? Whoa,
he's like, it feels like a Trump origin story, which he's right.
Trump was a slumlord.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
I thought the same thing. I did wonder why that movie wasn't making a comeback since the past several years.
It's a great concept, but it just felt so forced. I felt like when he's like riding on the treadmill trying to look like, oh, I can't keep up. It's just like,
oh, it's from 1991, dude.
I don't know.
It's just a gag. But
back then,
didn't you like the joke when the woman's complaining there's no electricity and she goes, "You want my son to do homework by candlelight?" And he goes, "Lincoln did. Why not? Lincoln did." And then he's got to take a shit, and then he knocks on the door because his toilet's backed up. He's like, "Come on, I got to take a shit." He's like, "What do you want me to do? Shit outside?" And then she goes, "Lincoln did." It's hilarious.
No, it's cute. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like it clicks with some people. It didn't for me. But
I think it's underappreciated. Hence,
it's a nice poster.
Yes.
Well, I think it was very feel good at the end.
It was so abrupt, wasn't it? Like crazy abrupt.
A little, a little.
What do you want it to be? Like 2.5 hours, Ian?
I think it was like a couple of moments. I don't know.
Do you want to be snow falling on Cedars when we're looking at a wooden chest? He's like, you don't know what's going on here. I mean, or like the intricacies of like of a land thing. It's like you spent $2,000, no $3,000. I mean, that was like 15
that would have
minutes.
worked in this film. That would have been good in the Super. Maybe the Super would be better as a drama. I don't know, like a real grand.
Well, to you it was because it wasn't really funny.
That's true. It was.
Yeah. Let me piggyback off that thought. There maybe be a drama. So, I have not seen the Super. I need to see the Super. It was funny because a couple of days ago, I was scrolling through Facebook, and a review from a Facebook friend came up for the Super.
Okay.
Which I couldn't believe. It was just like amazing timing. I can't believe it. And I actually have it here. I'm not going to reveal who it is, whatever, because everybody's entitled to their privacy. Wow. Did this movie age badly?
It did the day I saw it opening weekend.
Everything from tired stereotypes about minorities to Pesci's blatant sexual harassing of prosecuting attorney. This film was inspired by a true story, but a dramatic version of what happened would have been way more interesting than this.
Yeah, watching him, he's like watching the prosecutor walk away. He's like, "Oh, I'd like to eat with those two chopsticks." I'm like, oh,
it was just
it's 1991, Ian.
And also the best line of the film.
There was,
he's a pig.
Lincoln did it.
Lincoln did it. It broke. It worked before you broke it. Was also funny. See, I lived in a slumlord in Los Angeles, so I have total. And it's not. And I don't. And I disagree. It's not stereotypes. People are treated with a lot of respect. It's not caricatures. I'll
have to see it myself. I don't know. Just two sides of the equation. It was just very, very funny that you said about the Super. I wish I had the time. I've just been crazy. And do you guys have kids that play sports?
No. You watch movies and play video games?
You're lucky that there's just no time. I'm just never home. But yeah, no, I need to see the Super. How can we see this?
It's on Tubi.
It's on Tubi.
It's on Tubi.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
And if you want to see Domino, where can we find Domino again? Where did I see it?
Was that Tubi as well, I think?
No, I think that was on Pluto.
Pluto, right.
Pluto.
And Snow Falling on Cedars, I got on Amazon.
Yeah, sorry. You got to
I had to rent it.
Like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
I had to rent. I actually rented the DVD.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And did you finish it? You don't have to answer.
Of course. It's beautifully shot, dude.
It is beautiful.
It's one of the most beautifully shot movies.
Lyrical film, I would even call it.
I think it is so epic and then so gentle and quiet in other moments. I just love it. It's perfect.
And his face and her crying.
I say that about you, Ian. I say that about you as well.
I'm epic and quiet.
Yeah, and poetic in the face.
Poetic and lyrical. Ian certainly is. Well, thank you all. And remember, tonight's episode is brought to you by Grit and Script. If you're writing a screenplay and you need any help, visit gritandscript.com for all of your screenwriting needs.
They're the best.
We've got you covered. So thank you all for joining tonight. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thanks for
coming on again. We're going to have you on again to talk about, what was the movie?
There's two.
To talk about The Counselor.
To talk about The Counselor.
Yeah, we could do it. We could do. I mean, honestly, it's the Brad Pitt. It's the two movies that audiences have hated the most, and they
Southland Tales.
But I think if you go it was like the cinema scores on Killing Them Softly and on The Counselor in America, at least, because The Counselor didn't bomb overseas. And the joke is that movie actually made a decent amount of money. I think it did like $75 or $80 million worldwide. It just bombed here in the theater, but yeah, no,
because I want to see it.
The cinema scores were, I think, F-. I mean, they were like awful, but yeah, no,
is that bad?
One of those.
Is that bad?
Little bit.
F-?
I think you know those things they put in Variety.
It's true.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
Thanks
and
for
you
having
can
me.
also catch Domino and the Super and Snow Falling in Cedars, and of course Secret Admirer. And everybody at home, please check out Nick's greatest work, and also like and subscribe. And we shall see you next time.
Pop the popcorn, grab the Coke, and find that old